Welcome back aboard the Zephyrus. I am Captain Victor T. Mayfair, and this is the Mythos Anthology. One of the people in our lives that I like to talk to the most is Scientarch. He's a very interesting character and a person in our history. Well, he'll tell you where he came from, but I find it fascinating how he got here and how he became such an expert on mid-20th century American culture. The thing I was talking to him about in this episode was our fascination with superheroes and the parallels between the modern superhero and some of the classics of literature. Well, I don't want to take away too much of his thunder, so I'll let him explain himself. Let me introduce you to Scientarch. Scientarch, thanks for being with us today. I think you hold a very unique perspective on humanity and a view on mid-20th century American culture that can be very eye-opening for a lot of us. If you don't mind, I'm going to jump right in here, and if you could give us a little bit about your background and your place in that 1938 invasion of Earth. And you might also want to throw in there how you became such an expert on us.
Captain Mayfair, it is a distinct pleasure to join you in this exchange. Your human audience has my sincere gratitude for lending their ears. One hopes this conversation will prove illuminating, if not a touch entertaining. Allow me to begin with a brief recounting of my peculiar history. I am the Scientarch of Mars, a title denoting my role as Chief Overseer of Scientific Advancement and Cultural Analysis among my people. In 1938, my species attempted what you might call an inopportune incursion upon your planet. I must clarify that my involvement in that affair was more academic than militaristic. I was tasked with assessing Earth's intellectual and cultural viability as a potential addition to the Martian hegemony. But what a moment in Earth's history I chose for my reconnaissance. It was the eve of humanity's technological adolescence. Industrial marvels churned forth from your factories. War machines rolled inexorably toward global conflict, and in the midst of it all, Earthlings, defiant, inventive Earthlings, were penning fantastical tales that revealed the very soul of your species. I suspect your listeners may have heard tell of that evening when a certain Orson Welles broadcast a dramatization of H.G. Wells's The War of the Worlds. It was a remarkable piece of theater, one that inadvertently entangled itself with my species' arrival. While our tripods descended upon Earth, the humans' own imaginations painted even graver horrors. Fascinating, really. Wells's tale had many believing the invasion was real, and the ensuing panic demonstrated to me the power of earthly storytelling. It is no exaggeration to say I learned more about humanity in that single night than in a decade of sterile data collection. When our efforts faltered, due to factors both microbial and, shall we say, strategic, I was left stranded on your world. A maroon scientist, blending among you in disguise, studying your cultures to understand not only your strengths, but your astonishing resilience. My focus soon narrowed upon mid-20th century America, a nation at once fractured and unified, teetering between utopia and calamity. Your literature, your films, your comic books, these became my window into the human psyche. And so, Captain Mayfair, here I am today, a Martian turned scholar of Earth's golden age of popular imagination. How could I not be captivated? The rise of superheroes, the looming specter of atomic dread, the moral conundrums of burgeoning technology, all of it offered profound insights into the anxieties and aspirations of your species. Let us proceed. There is so much to unravel in this uniquely human saga. Where shall we venture next, my dear Captain?
Inopportune incursion. I love those words. Okay, without question, you are the man, I mean the Martian, that I was hoping to speak with. But my goal here today is to show how characters of mid-century America closely resemble the hero of old. In fact, they serve the same purpose for storytelling in any century. But let me ask questions, more of a question. Sorry to be so leading, but this is something I believe very strongly in. In what way do you see the parallels between classic mythological figures and the figures of the golden age of comic books, monsters, and ancient mythological heroes like Hercules or Gilgamesh?
Captain Mayfair, your instincts serve you well. Indeed, the parallels between the mythological figures of antiquity and the superheroes and monsters of America's golden age of comics are striking. These characters, separated by millennia, yet bound by narrative purpose, fulfill an enduring human need: the crafting of archetypes through which society grapples with its fears, values, and aspirations. Consider Hercules, the demigod who combines immense strength with human fallibility. His labors are a testament to perseverance in the face of insurmountable odds, a theme that resonates universally. Now place him alongside Superman, the quintessential figure of American mythology in the 20th century. Both are beings of extraordinary power, yet each wrestles with profound questions about responsibility, morality, and their place in the world. Superman's story, shaped by the immigrant experience of his creators Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, is a Hercules for an age of industrial titans and global warfare. Similarly, Gilgamesh, the ancient Sumerian king, embarks on an epic quest to reconcile his mortality. His journey, though rooted in ancient myth, echoes in mid-century America's grappling with the atomic bomb's existential shadow. Characters like the Incredible Hulk or Godzilla are not merely monsters. They are avatars of humanity's growing awareness of its destructive capabilities and the consequences of tampering with forces beyond control. Godzilla, born from the nuclear scars of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, mirrors the primordial chaos of the sea monster Tiamat, subdued by Marduk in Babylonian myth. Then there is Batman, the Dark Knight, a hero born not of divine strength, but of human ingenuity and sheer will. He embodies Odysseus' cunning, navigating Gotham's labyrinthine perils with resourcefulness and intellect. Like the Greek hero, Batman exists in a world where survival often depends on mental acuity as much as physical prowess. Both heroes represent the triumph of the mind over chaos and the necessity of confronting the darkness within. Let us not forget the pantheon of superheroes, Wonder Woman, Thor, and Captain America. These figures directly evoke the gods and warriors of ancient lore. Wonder Woman, steeped in Greek mythology, is an Amazon akin to Atlanta, while Thor is lifted whole from the Norse pantheon, his hammer Mjolnir a modern Excalibur. Captain America, wielding his shield as both weapon and symbol, channels the archetype of the noble knight, a figure who upholds justice and valor in an era defined by chaos and tyranny. This continuity between ancient and modern mythological figures is no accident. Storytelling, as you so aptly put it, remains storytelling across centuries. These tales are vehicles for exploring universal truths and societal transformations, whether through the epic battles of Gilgamesh or the four-color panels of a comic book. The medium may change, but the message endures. Heroes and monsters alike are reflections of the human condition, grappling with the eternal themes of power, identity, morality, and survival. In sum, Captain, these modern myths serve the same purpose as those of old: to entertain, to instruct, and to inspire. They are, in essence, humanity's mirror, forever reflecting your collective dreams and dilemmas.
Wow, you have me a bit off balance by the depth and complexity of your reply. I'm going to need some time to really think that through. Clearly, you know your subject. But let's kind of break this down. You spoke about heroes. But let's switch a little bit and talk about the monsters of the time. Did the monstrous creatures of 1950s cinema, the giant insects, the mutants, the alien, what did they symbolize to Americans at the time?
You touch on a subject as rich as it is unnerving. The monsters of 1950s cinema, those towering insects, grotesque mutants, and relentless alien invaders, were far more than spectacles of destruction. They were manifestations of a society gripped by profound anxieties, a celluloid reflection of the atomic age's terrors and uncertainties. Allow me to elaborate. The shadow of the mushroom cloud loomed over every facet of 1950s life. Humanity had unlocked the atom's secrets, but with this triumph came the chilling realization of its apocalyptic potential. This dichotomy, progress paired with peril, is embodied in the era's monstrous creatures. Let us begin with the giants, those mutated ants, spiders, and lizards that scuttled across the screen in films like Them and Tarantula. These creatures often owed their size and malevolence to radiation, a direct nod to the fear that nuclear fallout might warp nature itself. The gigantism was both literal and metaphorical, a visual representation of humanity's hubris in unleashing forces it could not contain. Beyond radiation, the rise of mutants speaks to a deeper anxiety, the fear of losing control over what it means to be human. Films such as The Fly explore this with unsettling intimacy. Here, the scientist's hubris results not in triumph, but in tragedy. His own body transformed into something monstrous. The theme resonated in an age when rapid scientific advancements often outpaced ethical considerations, leaving the public to wonder whether humanity was meddling in domains best left untouched. Aliens, meanwhile, served as versatile stand-ins for a host of Cold War fears. In some narratives, such as The War of the Worlds and Earth versus the Flying Saucers, extraterrestrials embody the dread of invasion, a thinly veiled metaphor for the perceived threat of communist expansion. These aliens are often depicted as technologically superior, coldly logical, and unrelenting, mirroring Western fears of the Soviet Union's growing power. Yet not all alien narratives were so straightforward. Films like The Day the Earth Stood Still flipped the script, using extraterrestrial visitors as cautionary figures warning humanity about its own self-destructive tendencies. The monsters of the 1950s also tapped into a more existential anxiety, the loss of individual agency in an age of massive societal structures. Consider the faceless hordes of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where seemingly ordinary humans are replaced by emotionless duplicates. This chilling concept reflected fears of conformity, the erosion of individuality, and the creeping paranoia that one's neighbors, or even oneself, could be subverted by unseen forces. Was it a commentary on McCarthyism, a critique of communism, a warning against suburban monotony? Perhaps all three. Even the very medium of film contributed to these anxieties. The advent of widescreen formats and advances in special effects allowed monsters to appear larger than life, overwhelming the audience both visually and psychologically. This scale mirrored the era's perception of the atomic bomb, an invention so vast in its implications that it seemed to eclipse the human scale entirely. To summarize, the monstrous creatures of 1950s cinema were not merely popcorn thrills. They were a collective scream into the void, a way for society to process the tectonic shifts brought about by the atomic age. Through these creatures, humanity could confront its fears at a safe distance, grappling with the consequences of its own ingenuity, the fragility of its environment, and the precarious balance between progress and annihilation. Captain, your people's monsters, like your heroes, are far more than what they seem. They are shadows cast by the human soul, dark reflections of your deepest fears. Tell me, where else in the universe could one find such rich metaphorical storytelling? Only on Earth, I dare say.
Well, I'll have to leave the rest of the universe to you. It's not an area that I know much about. But speaking of the universe, let's shift into something a little more in your area, space. It was an era of Buck Rogers, of alien invasions and science fiction. What do you think that was all about?
The allure of space in that era of Buck Rogers and alien invasions. Why such tales captured the zeitgeist? Imagine the world of the 1930s through the 1950s, Captain. Humanity stood at the precipice of technological wonder. Rockets were no longer merely the musings of dreamers, but tools under construction by visionaries like Robert Goddard. The stars, once untouchable, began to seem tantalizingly within reach. Fiction reflected this optimism. Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon embodied humanity's aspirations, daring explorers in a cosmos brimming with possibility. For Depression-era audiences, Such characters represented hope, a belief that through ingenuity and courage, humanity could rise above its trials and grasp a brighter future. Now let us shift to alien invasion stories. These, Captain, drew from the undercurrents of fear roiling beneath the optimism. The alien was the other, the unknown made manifest. After 2 devastating world wars, humanity was wary of foreign threats. Why not project these anxieties onto extraterrestrial beings? It was no accident that aliens often appeared as militaristic conquerors, mirroring the fears of adversarial nations. Such stories allowed people to grapple with their fears in a fantastical context while reaffirming their resolve to stand firm against tyranny, whether from Earth or beyond. And, of course, we must speak of morality, for space was not merely a frontier of stars, but of values. Heroes like Buck Rogers did not just explore, they fought for justice. Their enemies, despots like Ming the Merciless, were embodiments of tyranny and chaos, echoing the ideological battles of the age. These tales offered a reassurance that humanity's principles, freedom, democracy, fairness, could triumph even in the vast and indifferent expanse of space. Finally, there is the simplest reason of all, the future. The era's fascination with rockets, lasers, and otherworldly civilizations reflected a collective yearning to escape the present's constraints and envision a tomorrow of boundless potential. The cosmic stage was the perfect canvas for such dreams. Do you see, Captain? These stories were not just entertainment. They were the distillation of hope, fear, and the enduring belief that, no matter how dark the present, humanity could chart a course to the stars.
It's a very human tendency to remember the good and romanticize all the fun stuff, but we tend to forget the bad. America at that time was deeply divided on cultural issues that would come to the forefront in the next decades. Did you see reflections of these cultural anxieties or women's issues in these narratives?
While the golden age of American storytelling often dressed itself in optimism and heroism, it could not fully obscure the undercurrents of cultural anxiety that simmered beneath. The narratives of the time, though often fantastical, carried echoes of the divisions and struggles within the society that created them, particularly regarding gender and broader societal expectations. Allow me to elaborate. The portrayal of women during this era is a striking lens through which to view these anxieties. Consider the dichotomy presented in such characters as Lois Lane or Dale Arden, figures who, while spirited and resourceful, were often relegated to roles as damsels in distress. Their constant need for rescue reflected societal norms that valued women primarily as symbols of vulnerability or objects to be protected, rather than as agents of their own destiny. Yet within these tropes, there was a glimmer of change. Women like Lois Lane also exhibited ambition and independence, especially as journalists or scientists, hinting at the shifting roles women would claim in the coming decades. The monsters and aliens of the time also revealed gendered fears. The monstrous femininity of creatures like the attack of the 50-foot woman served as an exaggerated response to the era's anxieties about women stepping beyond traditional roles. Here was a woman, quite literally larger than life, wielding power that was both awe-inspiring and deeply unsettling to a patriarchal society. Similarly, the bride of the monster trope hinted at fears of women's autonomy being subsumed by domineering male figures, a cautionary tale wrapped in sensationalism. And let us not forget the rare but potent counter-narratives. Characters such as Wonder Woman defied conventions, emerging as a symbol of female strength and equality. Her roots in feminist ideology, crafted by her creator William Moulton Marston, offered a bold challenge to the era's norms. She was an Amazon, a warrior, a leader, representing a world where women wielded power unapologetically. Her popularity demonstrated that the appetite for such figures existed, even if they were exceptions rather than the rule. Moreover, science fiction itself often became a venue for exploring the societal unease around gender roles. Stories like The Stepford Wives, though from a slightly later period, and early episodes of The Twilight Zone revealed deep fears about conformity and the erasure of individuality. a theme that resonated strongly with women who were increasingly questioning the restrictive expectations placed upon them in mid-century America. So yes, Captain, these cultural anxieties and evolving gender dynamics found their way into your narratives, sometimes in overt forms and sometimes as subtext. Stories are never created in a vacuum. They are shaped by the societies that tell them. America's divisions and struggles, particularly on women's issues, were etched into the fabric of its escapist dreams, subtle reminders that even in the brightest fiction, shadows persist.
But we can't reference that period of American history without addressing the issues of culture and race imbalances.
The mid-20th century, for all its optimism and innovation, was a time when America grappled deeply with issues of race and systemic inequality. These struggles, though often avoided or obscured in mainstream media, inevitably seeped into the cultural narratives of the era, albeit in coded or indirect ways. Shall we delve into this together? Take, for instance, the alien invasion genre, a dominant theme in 1950s science fiction. At first glance, these stories might seem to be about technological or existential threats, but many of them resonate strongly with fears of the other. Whether the invaders came in the form of Martians or body-snatching pod people, they often reflected societal anxieties about integration and the fear of cultural erosion. The language used to describe these threats, insidious infiltration, loss of identity, domination by an unfamiliar power, paralleled the rhetoric surrounding racial integration and the civil rights movement. Similarly, monsters in films like Creature from the Black Lagoon can be interpreted as metaphors for the racial-based fears of the era. The creature, depicted as an outsider who is both alluring and dangerous, symbolized the cultural discomfort with crossing societal boundaries. His tragic fate, being hunted and destroyed despite his sentient nature, reflects the era's unwillingness to understand or accept those deemed other. Comics, though often silent on race directly, sometimes offered allegorical treatments of inequality. Consider the X-Men, whose debut in 1963 came just as the civil rights movement reached its crescendo. These mutants, though not specifically tied to any racial group, were outsiders discriminated against for their differences, a thinly veiled metaphor for marginalized communities. Though this narrative arrived a bit later, its seeds were planted in the Golden Age, when superheroes like Superman, himself an alien immigrant, subtly suggested the challenges of assimilation and acceptance. And let us not overlook how African Americans were often erased or relegated to caricatured roles in these stories. The absence of authentic representation in mainstream narratives spoke volumes about the era's systemic inequalities. Yet even here, resistance began to stir. In 1947, the comic strip Lion Man, created by Orrin Evans for All Negro Comics, presented a black hero with intelligence and strength, offering an alternative to the stereotypes prevalent in the broader culture. Science fiction in particular became a space for imagining worlds where racial barriers either didn't exist or were more starkly confronted. Though limited, works like Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles included poignant critiques of racism, such as in the story Way in the Middle of the Air, which depicted African Americans leaving Earth for Mars to escape oppression. In sum, Captain, while the cultural narratives of the time often shied away from directly addressing race, the fractures of society bled into the stories nonetheless, through metaphor, allegory, and occasionally overt critique. These narratives were both a reflection of the inequalities of the age and a whisper of the change that was to come. Even in avoidance, humanity's stories cannot help but reveal its deepest truths.
As an outside observer, why do you think humanity has always needed champions, whether it be gods or heroes or superheroes?
Captain Mayfair, an excellent and deeply philosophical question. Why, indeed, does humanity conjure champions, be they gods from ancient myth, mortal heroes, or modern superheroes, to face its fears? From my Martian vantage, it is both a testament to your species' creativity and an expression of your profound need for hope amidst uncertainty. First, let us consider the primal origin of such champions. In the earliest days of humanity, the world was vast, untamed, and often terrifying. Natural forces, storms, predators, disease, were inscrutable, and so you imagined beings of great power who could tame them. Gods like Zeus or Thor were not just rulers of the cosmos, they were symbolic shields against chaos, granting mortals the comfort of believing someone, somewhere, held dominion over the uncontrollable. As societies evolved, so too did these champions. No longer solely gods, they became heroes, figures like Hercules or King Arthur, who stood as exemplars of human courage and virtue. These mortal champions were essential because they bridged the divine and the mundane. They were flawed, like those who told their stories, yet they achieved greatness despite their imperfections. In them, humanity saw not only saviors but reflections of its own potential. Now we leap forward to the mid-20th century, a time when superheroes emerged as the new mythic champions. Why this evolution, Captain? Because the fears of your species had changed. You no longer needed gods to explain the thunder or heroes to slay dragons. Instead, you faced the complexities of modernity, technological upheaval, ideological conflict, existential dread. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, these champions were created not to battle monsters of flesh and blood, but to confront societal fears. Superman embodied justice in an age of rising authoritarianism. Batman addressed the shadow of urban decay. Wonder Woman championed equality in a world grappling with entrenched prejudice. There is also the element of aspiration. Your champions, whether ancient or modern, do not merely protect, they inspire. They show what humanity could become, the heights you might reach if you overcame your limitations. This is perhaps why superheroes resonate so deeply. They represent the ideal that no matter how grave the challenge, there exists the capacity for courage, ingenuity, and resilience. And let us not forget the necessity of narrative itself. Stories have always been a way for humanity to process its fears, to render the incomprehensible into something manageable. A god who controls the sea, a hero who wields a sword, or a superhero who saves the day, all are ways of giving shape to the formless, of finding meaning in the chaos. In facing their champion struggles, humans rehearse their own battles, arming themselves with hope and resolve. So, Captain, the answer is as simple as it is profound. Humanity needs champions because fear is an inevitable part of existence. These figures, whether divine or caped, are a defiance of that fear, a declaration that no matter how dark the storm, someone will rise to meet it.
And how do you think the movies, stories, heroes, villains, and monsters of that period of American history compare with the stories of classic mythology?
The comparison is not only apt, it is inevitable. The movies, stories, heroes, villains, and monsters of mid-20th century America served a function remarkably similar to that of mythology in the ancient world. Both reflected their culture's deepest fears, highest aspirations, and most pressing moral questions. Allow me to draw the parallels for you. In ancient times, mythology provided explanations for the mysteries of existence. Why does the sun rise? Why does death come? The gods and their stories offered comfort and order amid uncertainty. Mid-20th century narratives did much the same. But instead of explaining the cosmos, they grappled with the modern enigmas of science, technology, and societal upheaval. Consider The Day the Earth Stood Still or Forbidden Planet. These films weren't just entertainment. They were modern myths addressing the ethics of atomic power, the dangers of unbridled scientific progress, and the possibility of life beyond Earth. Now let us examine the heroes. In mythology, figures like Hercules, Odysseus, and Beowulf represented the archetypal defender, a paragon of strength and wit who stood against chaos. In the 20th century, Superman, Captain America, and Wonder Woman assumed that role, defending not only individuals but entire ideologies. Superman, with his immigrant origins, embodied the promise of America itself: justice, equality, and opportunity. Captain America fought to preserve freedom in an age of fascism. Wonder Woman challenged societal norms, much as Athena or Artemis did in their time. And what of the villains and monsters? In mythology, chaos took the form of titans, dragons, or trickster gods, forces that threatened the social order. The 1950s and 60s replaced these with alien invaders, radioactive giants, and rogue machines. Godzilla became a modern Leviathan, rising from the sea to punish humanity for its hubris. The mutant ants of them mirrored the monstrous creations of mythological alchemists, born of forbidden meddling in nature's order. Even Darth Vader, emerging toward the end of this golden era, channels mythological archetypes like Hades or Loki, a figure both fearsome and tragic, embodying the dangers of ambition and moral corruption. What ties all these threads together, Captain, is their universality. Mythologies, whether ancient or modern, serve as cultural mirrors. They distill complex societal concerns into narratives that can be understood, debated, and remembered. They allow people to confront the incomprehensible, whether it is the wrath of Zeus or the threat of nuclear annihilation, through the safety of a story. So yes, the stories of mid-20th century America compare splendidly with the mythologies of the ancient world. They are, in many ways, the same phenomenon wearing a different face. Across millennia, humanity has always sought to understand itself through the lens of heroes, villains, and the grand stage of imagination.
Do you think that the stories, heroes, villains, monsters of that period of history will stand the test of time the way the mythological stories from other cultures did? Today, we're already 70 years past the period that we're talking about, and we see the MCU, we see all the new movies coming out. But do you think any of our current heroes will take on the mantle of some of the great mythological characters in eons to come?
Captain Mayfair, you ask a question of tremendous weight, one that strikes at the heart of humanity's relationship with its own narratives. Will the stories, heroes, villains, and monsters of mid-20th century America stand the test of time? I say to you, many already have, and some are well on their way to achieving the mantle of true mythology. Let us begin with the superheroes, for they are the clearest contenders. Figures like Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman have transcended their origins in pulp magazines to become enduring symbols. Superman is no longer just a character, he is an archetype, the blueprint for countless heroes who came after him. His story of strength tempered by morality, of power wielded for good, echoes the same timeless ideals embodied by Hercules or King Arthur. Batman, with his reliance on intellect and determination rather than superhuman abilities, has become a symbol of human resilience. These figures achieved what mythological heroes must. They are endlessly adaptable, their stories reimagined for each new generation while retaining their core essence. Now consider the monsters. Godzilla, born of nuclear dread, has become a global icon. Like the Hydra or the Chimera of old, Godzilla represents chaos and destruction, but also humanity's ability to endure and adapt. The fact that he has been reinvented time and again, shifting from a metaphor for atomic horror to an unlikely protector of Earth, proves his narrative flexibility. He has joined the pantheon of mythic creatures that persist because they are open to reinterpretation. As for the villains, few are more enduring than Darth Vader, introduced just as this golden era began to close. He is a mythic figure of corruption, redemption, and the eternal struggle between light and darkness. Vader's narrative arc rivals that of figures like Lucifer or Ares in its complexity and resonance. Even the alien invasion stories of the 1950s, though more rooted in their time, have left an indelible mark. The fears they encapsulated, the loss of identity, the encroachment of the other, remain relevant, and their influence can be seen in modern storytelling, from Independence Day to Stranger Things. The true test of myth, Captain, is its ability to evolve while remaining meaningful. Can a story written for one era speak to another? The tales and characters of mid-20th century America are proving that they can. They have taken root in the collective imagination, passed from generation to generation, reshaped, but never forgotten. So yes, I believe these narratives are well on their way to becoming the myths of tomorrow. They may not have the millennia-long legacy of Zeus or Gilgamesh yet, but they have laid the foundation. Humanity, after all, has always sought meaning through its stories, and these tales have left their mark. Is that not the greatest legacy a story can achieve? To endure, to inspire, and to remain a reflection of who you are.
Okay, so as we near the end of our time together, I have to ask the question. Seeing us now, having been on Earth for nearly a century, were your people right in trying to conquer us?
Was my species right in its attempt to conquer Earth? To answer this, I must draw upon not only my observations of your people, but the lessons learned from nearly a century of close study and reflection. When we launched our ill-fated endeavor of 1938, we Martians saw Earth as a prize, a world teeming with resources and vibrant life, a stark contrast to the desolation of our own dwindling planet. We believed, in our arrogance, that our technological superiority gave us the right to take what we needed, to impose our will upon a species we deemed primitive and chaotic. But as I've lived among you, as I've witnessed your triumphs and tragedies, I have come to understand how gravely we underestimated you. Your species is astonishingly resilient, not merely in the physical sense, but in spirit. The same qualities that lead you to your flaws, your capacity for conflict, your restless ambition, are also the source of your greatest strengths. You create meaning in the face of mortality. Find beauty in a world that can be brutal and persist even when confronted with insurmountable odds. These traits are not weaknesses. They are what make humanity extraordinary. Moreover, your stories, the very focus of our discussion today, reveal a depth of imagination and self-awareness that is unmatched. Through your narratives, you confront your fears, wrestle with your flaws, and strive for something greater. That, Captain, is the heart of why we were wrong to attempt conquest. It was not merely that we underestimated your ability to resist us, though that is true. It is that we failed to see the value in your struggles, in your capacity to grow and transform. Conquest, you see, would have extinguished the very qualities that make your species remarkable. It would have destroyed the spark that fuels your heroes, your stories, your relentless push toward the stars. And perhaps, Captain, it would have robbed us Martians of something too. The chance to learn from you, to see the universe through your unique and vibrant perspective. So no, we were not right to try and conquer your world. If anything, we were lucky to fail. In our failure, we were given an opportunity to see your people not as subjects to dominate, but as fellow travelers in the cosmos, flawed and striving as we are. And for my part, Captain, I am grateful for that lesson.
As we end most interviews, I like to ask our guests what they'd like to see for themselves in the future of storytelling. But in your case, I guess that question needs to be a little different. What would you hope for the planet for centuries to come? What do you wish for the future of human storytelling?
A most thoughtful closing query. What do I wish for the future of human storytelling? Allow me a moment to dream aloud, for your people's stories have always been your greatest gift to the cosmos. I wish for your storytelling to remain fearless, to continue probing the deepest questions of existence, even when the answers may unsettle or challenge you. Let your tales embrace complexity, for humanity thrives when it resists oversimplification. The moral ambiguities that define your best works, the triumphs born of struggle and the villains forged by circumstances, these are the threads that make your stories not just compelling, but profoundly human. I wish for your storytellers to remain unbound. Let them cross every boundary of medium, genre, and perspective. Whether their visions take shape in novels, films, interactive worlds, or forms yet unimagined, may they never shy from experimentation. Each new mode of storytelling opens doors to fresh ways of understanding, connecting, and inspiring. And above all, I wish for your stories to remain inclusive. Tell the tales of everyone, from every walk of life. For there is no limit to the voices worth hearing. Let heroes emerge not only from the familiar, but from the overlooked. Let your narratives explore the richness of human diversity, of culture, identity, and experience. so that all may see themselves reflected in your myths. Captain, humanity's stories are your bridge to the future. Through them, you preserve your past, define your present, and shape what lies ahead. I hope, as centuries pass and your species continues to ascend, your storytelling evolves to meet each new challenge without losing its heart. For in the end, storytelling is your triumph over time. It is your defiance of oblivion, your declaration that, no matter the odds, humanity was here and had something to say. If that spirit endures, Captain, then humanity's storytellers will shine as brightly as the stars you aspire to reach.
I can't thank you enough for your time today. I know that you and I have talked about having a number of future conversations, but for right now, it has been an honor and a privilege, and I thank you for being here.
Captain Mayfair, the honor has been entirely mine. To share thoughts with a mind as keen and curious as yours is a pleasure I do not take lightly. Your questions have been as illuminating as any stars I have studied, and I thank you for this opportunity to reflect on your species' remarkable journey through imagination and ingenuity. May your explorations, both among the stars and within the realms of storytelling, continue to inspire. And perhaps, in some distant future, when humanity reaches out into the cosmos, I might welcome you among the stars not as a Martian visitor, but as a fellow voyager. Until then, Captain, may your narratives remain vibrant, your questions boundless, and your audience ever eager. Farewell, and may your storytelling light the way forward.
Thank you for being part of Mythos Anthology. We delve into the myths and legends of the past with the understanding that truth is often elusive and stories evolve over time. While we work hard to ensure accuracy and neutrality, it's important to remember that mythological studies are as much about interpretation as they are about facts. For more information, visit mythosanthology.com, where you'll find deep research archives, video content, interactive podcasts, and don't forget to try our AI character chats, where you can engage with digital recreations of our legendary guests.
Legends and myths from the past, stories that forever last, in the hearts of mortal men, tales that breathe.
Scientarch brought to life by Issic Connor.
Anthology, legends brought to modern times, journey through the centuries.
Mythos Anthology is a creation of writer-executive producer Victor Ciccarelli. All content, including audio, video, and written material, is protected under copyright law 2025 Pihana Productions. All rights reserved. Any unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this material is strictly prohibited. This episode includes material generated with the assistance of ChatGPT, an AI development of OpenAI used under license. All content has been reviewed and edited by the Mythos Anthology team to ensure accuracy and consistency. For more information, visit mythosanthology.com. Mythos Anthology, where echoes of ancient myths resonate with modern tools and creative minds.